if I was to give you an option, would you hire for the right skill or would you hire for the right attitude?
So thank you. I think that's a very, very provocative question. So I'm going to put forth some very provocative answers as well. So the first thing that I need to put on the table is that I'm very, very, very skeptical of all of these claims of culture fit and hiring for. So one of the organizations that I worked with claimed that they hire for values and train for skills, and so on. Now, the problem with all of these claims is that the person who is hiring also has no clue what the real culture is. So, are you hiring in your own image, which is one of the biggest challenges that bedevil any hiring process? And actually, you have to kind of um, design it so that people, especially leaders, don't start hiring in their own image.
The bias and the possible biases
Because
that
there are these biases. And so call bias is not culture, for heaven's sake. I will give a counter example. One of the people whom I have most respect for the unconventional things that he's done in his organization, is Ricardo Semler. And the latest organization that he started up has a very simple rule for hiring, that you put out the need for hiring. Whoever is the first person who turns up and is confident that they will be able to do the job is hired. And his organization seems to be doing wonderfully well. Now, of course, there is this flip side to it. When you know that if you go and apply and you're the first one, you will get hired. And said, so then you will have to do that job. And so it doesn't, you're going to pay a price if you have padded up your resume or you claim things that you're not capable of doing. Because his organization also has another mechanism, which is every 6 months, the entire organization sits together and they decide who would they like to continue being part of the organization for the next 6 months. There's no elaborate performance metrics and KRAs and all of these things. It's people who sit down because they work with each other. They know everybody's truth. And so you need at least 66%, two-thirds of the people have to at least say that they want to continue working with you of all the votes that you receive. And so if you're not up to scratch, I'm very curious to figure out how does he actually make it happen? How does it kind of bypass politics, etc., and organizational dynamics? Because I might like certain people, or certain people will kind of.
because the minute there is a vote, there is lobbying and so on and so forth.
So I'm sure he's figured something out, knowing because it's working for him and because he's done these unconventional things earlier and better. But see how it resonates with getting the best, getting extraordinary results with ordinary people. I think there is a correlation. You assume that the person they're saying that they can do this job, you respect that and you give them a chance. So now let me come back to the hiring for the fit, hiring for the value. I work very closely with founders. The founders themselves struggle with translating what values they want in the organization into the organization. And here the hiring person is claiming that they can assess, what the other person's values are and are they in alignment with how. I would love to know, because what people say and who they actually are can be very. Yeah, you can use some psychometric instruments to give you an idea. But I'll tell you what, in my considered opinion, we use all of these kind of supports and all of these kind of mechanisms to justify whatever it is that we are doing. Because it's a tricky thing. So organizations go and hire supposedly top talent from the premier institutes. I'll tell you what the reality is. The reality is that the HR guy is saying that, look, if somebody doesn't turn out to be good, then I have a defense saying that, look, I went and hired from the best. What else could I have done? See, it's covering your backside. So I think organizations have to look at their own situation, the local talent market, and figure out what's the best strategy for them. If the local market is teeming with great talent, you're lucky. I mean, I'll go to the extent of reminding you that there was a time, I remember, during the dot-com boom, where they just wanted warm bodies. Prior to that, at least, is this person breathing or not, was what they were trying to find out. But during that dot-com boom, they were saying, okay, is it a warm body? As long as it's a warm body, I can bill the person to the client. So might have just died, during the interview, but the body is still warm. And rigor mortis has not set in. And so, okay, I will hire and I will bill the client. So I'm very skeptical of both these claims, at the people who say warm body and people who say that perfect alignment with values, and um, it never happens.
See, I mean, one experience that I've had with one of our clients um, was that the whole hiring thing was was very tightly tied up with the market. When the market was doing well, you kind of lower the standards and let people in, and people are also aware of the fact that the sun's shining, so let me make hay, and then they kind of inflate their demands, and somehow because the market is good, and as you said, they need to be billed, they walk into the system. But the minute the market kind of starts dipping, usually they are the first ones, the first heads to roll. So with I mean, I would like to have an answer from you on, as an organization, as a leader, how can somebody delink the whole hiring process and the market reality?
So there are two things that organizations do or can do. I've helped some of my organizations that I worked with deal with it. One is to always hire a little more, maybe 10% to 20% more than what you're expecting. Because some people will go, they will not be the right fit, in the sense that they figure out very soon that that's not what they wanted to do in life. They may have said all the right things in terms of they would have seen your website, they would have talked to people, their seniors who are in your organizations, and then they would have repeated back to you what you wanted to hear in terms of their expectations. But actually, their expectations might have been something else. Or they discovered once they came in that what they thought they wanted is not what they want now. And so they want out, etc. So, have a little bit of a buffer. The second part that I want to say, and that is the more important part, and this is especially true for critical roles, senior roles, and the organization's business trajectory, that the senior leadership needs to keep interviewing and meeting people, whether there is a need right now and there is a role right now or not, so that you're constantly getting to meet a lot of times what has happened with some of my CEOs is that I've been able to get them to talk to somebody, and suddenly, because of their conversation, they figured that there is an opportunity in the existing business which they had not forethought of, and this person has triggered it, and then they immediately want this person, they want to hire this person. Remember, there's no vacancy for which they were interviewing, and that is how it was positioned even to the person who was invited for the interview, saying that, look, this is an exploratory meeting. I think your profile is interesting, and I think we may have a alignment. But would you be willing to come in and meet up over a informal chat, cup of coffee, tea with the CEO? And that ends up finding both business ideas and a person who will carry that, as well as in the future when you run into something and then you remember, okay, that guy whom we had met, is a great guy. And typically you're still connected because you've had an informal connection, correct, informal interaction. So you more like friends, and you're exchanging, you're staying connected, you're kind of thinking about what this business is about, what the others are doing, etc. One of the other pieces that suggest people who are in strategic hiring is to always keep looking at who are the key people amongst your competing companies or organizations that are doing similar work, or have people who the success competencies in your organizations. What are the similar roles out there, whether in competing companies or non-competing companies, and who are the key people there who are doing really well? You can find that out through, the grapevine, and from LinkedIn profiles, and you can reach out to them, have informal conversations, and those informal conversations will rule out a lot of people, but there will be a handful, high impact of people who you will get access to, whom otherwise would not even have been in the talent pool that you were considering. They might come from, a blue ocean. You never imagined that somebody with that profile could add a ton of value. And we know that from business case studies that concepts that originate in one organization or one kind of industry can be applied very successfully and very well in some other industry or uh, domain with very good results.
The intersection points.
Yeah. So I think this, when you're a head of HR, you need to be conscious and you need to be mapping this. You need to be putting in some effort ahead of the curve to be able to generate the kind of hiring options, strategic hiring options. I'm not saying you'll be able to do this in all cases. You can also do this in the at the entry level. Now, I think data analytics will tell you which, for example, which campuses you hire from are giving you the best long-term players or most high-performing players. I mean, follow that data, build relationship with those deep relationships with those institutions that are your talent pools. Send your best people to talk to the students there, do guest lectures, do workshops, give them projects, and get them in as interns as well. Let them know you, and so that they can make a very informed choice about coming to you or not. And that helps quite a lot in terms of the person's new person's aspirations being more in alignment. Uh, Having discarded all of this talk about value alignment and uh, hiring for values, training for skills, there is some merit to it. I don't deny it. You would want to be very sure about a person's integrity, for example. So I think what organizations need to really think through is what are the non-negotiables for a particular role. And in any role, I don't think you're going to be wanting to hire somebody for whom you know the integrity is a question mark, whether you can trust what the person is saying or how the person will behave. So you do need to do your, rigorous, checks and um, assessments to rule out people who will be bad apples in any case. I mean, in any role. Leave aside your organization. Wherever they go, they will create a problem. Also, I think there is merit in us trying to assess the attitude, especially whether the person has an entitlement attitude. An entitlement attitude is defined as somebody who thinks that the world is out there to serve him or her, and that it's the organization's duty to do A, B, C, D, E, or it's somebody else's lookout to ensure that they are successful. So I would be very wary of, and so should all the hiring uh, teams, team members should be, of people who come with an entitlement attitude. They are not going to make your life easier. They're going to trouble your organization, no matter what capabilities and qualifications and promise they come with. You're going to have trouble with them sooner rather than later. It's the last piece that I want to say is that in the need and the hurry for hiring, there is an enormous tendency across the board, including with HR people. Usually, the HR is supposed to be the gatekeepers and say, "Hey, don't be in a hurry. I'm not very sure." And I think Amazon's hiring process puts that to use, very very well, where you have one person who can veto and saying, this hiring is not happening. So I think that's a good use of in figuring out red flags and saying that no, this is a no go. um, I think other organizations do that as well in different ways, but Amazon's hiring has specifically this veto. It's one person who has a veto. um, so I think it's important to have a mechanism of figuring out red flags in terms of attitude, mostly in terms of behavior, in terms of how they respond, what they say about certain things, and that is a giveaway. So a lot of behavioral events questions typically will tell you where this individual's attitude and your organization's teams are going to run into each other. And having said that, there is no perfect candidate ever. So you do your best. Try and assess the best, and then whoever you kind of hire, you try and set them up for success. You don't then kind of let them, throw them at the deep end of the sea and hope that they will be able to swim and that they will be able to deal with the sharks as well. No, you do everything that you can as an organization to help make this candidate or this new employee successful in that role. It's good for them. It's imperative for you. Why would you not do it? That could mean small things in terms of when you have assessed the attitudes, you have assessed the behavior, you have assessed the skills, you have assessed the experience, you have assessed the qualifications. So wherever you see a gap, you put that on the table in a very diplomatic way, and you help them overcome this in conjunction, in alignment, in complementarily with the other team members. You request that other team member that look, he's going to struggle with this, so you will need to step in and help him out initially in this particular area. And do I have your okay with that? And also, get this person to acknowledge and be willing to go out and ask for help in the areas that they're going to struggle with. And hopefully you've told this to the person, saying that, look, you're great at ABC, in D you're going to struggle, and these, I think, are some of the things that you will need to initiate on your own. These are some of the things that I can help create around your role that can help you succeed in spite of this challenge. So I think it's a very curated solution. There is no one size that fits all. You look at it in each individual, and you kind of curate that. What happens when there are a larger number of people that are in the funnel? For example, when you hire freshers, you take in a large number of them. So again, they do go through some process where they're assessed, saying that, look, this role requires more resilience, and so out of these 10 people, the person with the most resilience gets an opportunity they provided, that's what that other person also wants. If not, then who is the person who wants to go there and has a reasonable level of resilience, who can handle that particular role? So I think it's a lot of constant assessment, a lot of constant support, a lot of constant monitoring if things are going right or not. And that's what business HR partners' job is. Back to you. Sorry, long one, but I thought it had a lot of insights.
Right. So what I very clearly hear is, while the job description is from where it all starts, the job specification is something that needs to be understood. The competency frameworks needs to be understood, and hiring people for the competencies will surely help us beat the tide of the current market requirement. And it's not like we're trying to catch up, but there's a possibility of the organization could actually soar past the curve by an inch, and that would be a huge advantage. And one of the points that you said, with which we would like to close this, is it reminded me of the analogy. I recently, a couple of months back, met um, an art curator, somebody who's extremely active in the artifacts circle. And out of curiosity, I asked him, um, "Why do you attend these many exhibitions? I mean, do you buy from all the exhibitions?" And he said, "No, I visit all the exhibitions so that I know what is of utmost value at this point in time, and it also helps me whenever I have to source something. I know exactly where to go." So, which is very similar to what you said. I mean, people, as head of HR or even leaders who understand that the business um, depends heavily on the quality of people that you get in, they should consistently keep looking out for talent, um, irrespective of whether there is a need in the organization or not. They should continue to keep their ears out there in the market to hear the buzz, to understand, so that when there is a need, they could be the first ones to move in and bring in the right kind of talent for the organization to grow. So, so to the humans of HR out there, sorry to break your heart. This is one thing where you can't really work on one single framework and hope that it works for everybody. It's extremely curated. We need to understand, but the points that we spoke about might just help you move things in the right direction. So with that, thank you so much, Leaf. Lovely talking to you as always. Thank you so much for the insight. And to our viewers, thank you so much for logging in and checking our content. Please do like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so that we're able to reach out to more of our own people from the fraternity, who we very proudly call the humans of HR. Thank you so much. See you in the next.
So if I can just quickly add two things that I wanted to share,
Oh, yeah.
which are important. The first one is that if you need to hire some for some critical role and you don't already have three people shortlisted for it, you've not done your job because you didn't anticipate it and you haven't interviewed them and you don't have a shortlist, which means you failed in your job. And I'm saying not for all, only for the key critical roles in your organization. The second one is that there will be people who you hire who will not turn out to be able to succeed in their role. When that happens, please have the humility to know that exactly 50% of that blame lies with you. You were equal party to selecting that person. So don't put all the blame on that person. Please take some blame and examine what went wrong and learn from it so that you do better the next time. So with that, back to you. Thank you, Harish. Always a pleasure.
See you on the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.